We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Well, there are some guests that deserve repetition. First of all, that, of course, deserve no introduction, but deserve repetition. And on this seismic day in the history of college football, I must call on the head Tar Heel in my life, Mike Felder, Bleacher Report's own. Mike Felder, welcome back to Split Zone Duo.
Dude, thank you so much for having me back, man. You and I have talked on the phone so much in the last week.
When was the first time I called you last week? It was probably what, Wednesday?
Wednesday or Thursday, yeah. And that's the funny thing. So I do Hand in the Dirt and obviously College Sports Now for Learfield. And Stephen Hartzell was like, this is a joke, right? And I was like, no, not a joke. It's not a joke. It's real. This is a real thing.
And that's what I think that, like, you were one of the first people. First of all, you were the first person that I spoke to in the North Carolina orbit,
right? That
lent credence to the Belichick thing at all.
Yes.
So just on your end, you played for North Carolina. You're a North Carolina alum. You still live in state. Just take me through the week from your end as someone who knows this program inside and out, lived it, and saw in real time what they were up to here.
So here's the thing for me, Richard, like truly, I'm so mad that I'm being serious. My screen time is through the roof. I'm so mad that my screen time is through the roof, but it's text messages, it's phone calls, it's all those things. And then it's also there's a level of deception that I don't think people realize with respect to like how information gets disseminated out to the public. And so what I'm getting is phone calls from whether it's someone that's on the selection committee or it's someone that talked to someone that's on the selection committee, whether it's someone that talks to a donor. I'm getting the info from them. I've got to figure out a way, because it can't be me. So I got to figure out a way to get this out. And so, because truly people did not believe that this was a real thing. And I was like, it's real. It is real. Like when you called me, you were like, is this real? And I was like, it's real. It is real. They've already been talking to him for like a couple more days than you even realize. Like, this is a real thing. So I don't know, from the UNC community, and I'm still getting text messages from my friends, and I will just be full disclosure. Like, most of my friends played sports at UNC. I'm not even just saying football, like soccer. I'm getting like women's soccer players texting me, and I'm getting women's golfers texting me, like, what do you think about this? I'm getting people that were just students at UNC that I hung out with at Pantana Bob's, like, what's going on? And so that's going on the whole entire time. But at the end of the day, like, they got it done. They figured out a way. They've hired a GM, which that's a college football first. And now we're going to find out what this great experiment looks like, right?
The notion of North Carolina, because you are specifically qualified to answer this question. The notion of North Carolina acting with some degree of legitimacy. Now, I did not say seriousness, but legitimacy enough to pull this off. Explain, because I can't do it as well as you can. Explain to the audience how Carolina moving in this way is while not necessarily serious, at least is a show of legitimacy.
I think so. There's two sides to this coin, right? Because let's not forget, we started talking, Wednesday, Thursday? So it's been over a week that we started talking about this. And I was like, this is real. And on the this is real part, I spent 5-6 years working with Chris Sims. Chris Sims spent the previous years working with Bill Belichick. There's another guy that I played football with who also worked with Sims and Belichick, and they're like, he hates people.
And you played, just for the audience, you played for Carolina in the late 90s.
Early 2000s. 2003, 2006.
Okay.
So you guys don't have to like figure out who the guy is that I'm talking about. He works for the Texans now. He also coached under Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien brought him from the Patriots to the Texans. You can figure it out. But they were like, he hates people. He does not want to talk to people, which is bad for recruiting. It's bad to talk to moms, bad to talk to grandmas, bad to talk to dads, bad to talk to grandpas, aunties, the whole deal. Also bad to talk to boosters. Boosters want you to like hug them up. And like, he's like, no, I don't want to do any of this stuff. Then you flip over the other side of that coin. And this is, to me, this is the shinier side of that coin, right? This is your tails never fails. He's a professional. He is absolutely skilled in handling and navigating the, not transfer portal, but free agency and contracts and all that, which is why they obviously hired a GM. They're going to make sure that this is done right. So I think that's a big positive. And he's also a good football coach. We're talking about a guy that, and he understands, like, he's a professional. He needs you to be professional. And I was talking to someone earlier today. This is a guy that coached Lawrence Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I don't, like, literally, and I know this is going to sound bad to so many people, but he coached under Bill Parcells. And the whole point was, I don't care how much blow you do, my man. Show up.
There is a famous story about Bill Belichick. It's a night before the Super Bowl Bowl that they win over the Cowboys. I believe the Super Bowl is in the Rose Bowl. And it's a team meeting the night before the Super Bowl. And LT shows up.
NFC Championship game, right?
NFC, it might have been the NFC Championship, excuse me. And Lawrence Taylor shows up late.
Yes.
And Bill relays this to Parcells. Bill Belichick relays this to Parcells after the meeting. And Parcells just goes, why'd you start the meeting without LT there?
Bingo. Right. Like he's worked with guys like this. He worked with Gronkowski. And I hate to say this, but it keeps coming up. This is a guy that had Aaron Hernandez on his roster and was like, hey, man, if you show up, I'm not in charge of you killing people.
Exactly. I'm in charge of you on Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. What you going to do?
Listen, I'm not in charge of the other stuff. So that's going to be an interesting element. And I do think it will be interesting to see how that happens with, like, guys have to go to class.
Yeah.
And stay eligible. But I do think it makes him a massive player in the transfer portal. And anytime you can walk in and you've got, like, Butch Davis did the same thing, right? With his Super Bowl rings and his rings from Miami, he would walk into a kid's house and just be like, this is what I got for you. And Butch Davis famously, I'll never forget, I was done at UNC when Butch Davis was hired there. My last year was Bunnings last year. But Butch Davis famously walked into UNC and was like, hey, man, as long as you play on this football team, school is first, football is second. Like, yeah. So Bill's got that same, see?
I don't know. Could you imagine telling Bill Belichick you got to go to Chem Lab?
That's what I'm saying. But did you not see my fingers?
Yeah. Yeah.
School is first, holds up 2 fingers. Football is second, holds up 1 finger.
I think I do want to very quickly talk about Bill Belichick's scheme and the defensive scheme.
You got to have bodies.
So a couple things about Belichick, the head coach. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, became the greatest quarterback of all time, not just because of his own skill and the offensive skill around him, whether that's the 2 tight end days, whether that's the Randy Moss days, whether that's the late state, whatever you want to call it. Bill Belichick taught Tom Brady how to read defenses.
Yes.
Like he coaches defenses. He taught Tom Brady defense.
Yeah.
That's how Tom Brady became truly the supercomputer, because Tom Brady knows everything you are going to do on defense before the snap because Bill Belichick taught it to him. That's one thing. The other thing is the defense in general. The classic easiest way to say the defense is Bill Belichick has a very pragmatic approach to defense. Yeah. The easiest way to explain that is 1 double whoever. That is the classic, like, Bill Belichick will come into a game and they'll play Randy Moss, and they'll say, well, there's 2 guys on Randy the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to figure out how to beat us with one of your other auxiliary parts. Bill Belichick is a mastermind at changing a game plan and being pragmatic with a game plan from one week to the next. The magnum opus is that Monday night game. I think it was like 2019. It's a Monday night game against the Bills where it was so windy that they had to like reset the goalposts before the game, all that stuff. It's a Monday Night Football game, and they threw the ball, I think, 3 times.
Right.
That whole game in a professional football game and won the game. Like, that is his masterstroke, because all he cares about is getting in and out of a Saturday afternoon with the victory.
Yeah. And so the thing for me, bodies matter. And I think bodies matter even more in college because everybody's a pro in the NFL. They're all pros. But I think bodies matter, but these kids are going to have to learn that week to week to week, you're going to have to work very hard to impress him, to make sure that you're valuable enough to be on the field, to make sure that he cares. And I do think caring is like, maybe that's something we silo and we talk about that another time. But the real thing for me is he's not going to be able to just put 3 big guys out there. They don't have 3 big guys.
Yeah.
And so you can't put 3 big guys out there. Now you got to do linebackers, 4 of those guys, 3 of those guys with a big nickel. Okay.
They were a big, like a physically big defense.
Yeah.
They were a massive defense.
They were huge.
Yeah.
And they could move people around, and they had guys that could 2-gap. 2-gap is really hard for people that don't understand. Like, 2-gapping is being able to control, either you control one man up front and you move him this way, you move him left, or you move him right so that you can clog up a space, or you have 2 guys and you hold off 2 guys, depending on what they ask you to do. So there's a lot there. These guys are going to learn a lot about football, which I do think is after listening to Peyton Manning, listening to Tom Brady, listening to these guys talk about it, talking to my friends that play in the NFL, these guys aren't taught nearly enough football.
Mm.
And so
he is going to go insane at how fundamentally bad an 18-year-old former high school athlete is going to come to him. How raw, how undeveloped, and how fundamentally poor they are. Not their fault, but that is the game.
It's not their fault, but it is like the idea that these guys are going to get to him and he's going to be like, they're little boys. But they're little boys. So, but to go back to your point from a defensive standpoint, and I'm someone, I play safety, so I understand like the back end and how they have to do that. Because the best thing that you can do if you're going to bracket somebody, right? Like if you're playing against Randy Moss, if you're playing against Calvin Johnson, if you're playing against any of these great wide receivers in college football, when you bracket coverage, you take your second best corner. Put your second best corner with your safety over the top, and now you guys got a little bit of a window, and you do that, your best corner covers this guy by himself, which, if we put it in real terms, what is that? That's J.J. Smith. You cover him with your second best corner, then you have your safety over the top, and then on the backside, you're worried about Ibuka. Okay, no problem. But then you have your nickel who's on Tate, and he just has to take care of business. But that's the way it works. And so to me, I think this is one of those things where he's going to have to get these kids into the mindset of, please just do your job. Please do what I tell you to do. And I'll be honest, man, like they're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 tops mostly. They don't do their job. So it's going to be interesting. I know there are so many UNC fans that are super excited. I know there are a lot of folks, and I will say this in terms of like kind of covering this and following the lead up, obviously like having to convince, like I had to convince you, I had to convince Roddy, I had to convince Nicole Auerbach, I had to convince so many people that this was a real thing. But that's only because I'm way more plugged in, but the media, what I'm saying is the media take on it versus the fans take on it are so disparate the fans for UNC are so thrilled, so happy, so excited. Everybody else is skeptical. And I think they live in this world where they're like, we're going to prove them wrong. Like, sure. And honestly, go ahead and do it. Let's see what happens.
The Patriots were bad.
Yes.
His last year in charge, 2 years in charge.
Mm-hmm.
That was Tom left, drafted Mac Jones. They were not a good football team that he put together. Gerard Mayo is right now reaping what was sown during those 2 years because he is coaching a team that is frankly devoid of talent. It's Drake May and Christian Gonzalez, and like that's pretty much it. Funny enough, Belichick has not drafted a receiver worth a damn like ever, which is just hilarious to think about. It's they developed Edelman, they developed Hogan, they developed these small shifty guys, but like their swings outside of Randy Moss, their swings at the wide receiver position were pretty much always bad.
Yes,
which is just a funny way to put it.
You know what you need in college football?
Yeah. Like that's the thing. And so that like the way his teams failed in the last couple of years at New England is, I think, a thing a lot of people are conveniently glossing over and forgetting.
Yes. Totally. I agree with you. They are glossing. It's being glossed over. It's also no Tom Brady. It's not no Tom Brady, no problem. It's no Tom Brady problem.
Significant issue.
So Mac Jones. Oh, wow. That didn't work. Amazing. Like if you draft Mac Jones in the first round and then you have to go back 2 years later and draft Drake May. Okay. Well, what are you doing? So, I mean, what separates them from, at that point, the Jets, right? Like what separates them from them? So I do think that the portal, I also think that college football, like, I don't know how to say this the right way, but I'm just going to say it. Most of these coaches are dumb as hell, dude. And I think he's smarter. Like, what percentage would you put on it of coaches that he's smarter than?
I'm not worried about it on the field.
Right.
I am not worried about what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about can Bill Belichick craft a game plan to beat Dabo Swinney.
Right.
Like, or
does
not,
he have
maybe
the
not
players
Dabo.
to do it?
Right.
Will he have the players to do it?
That's the thing to me.
Yeah.
I am really not concerned with Bill Belichick's ability to manage a game or that's just not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the ancillary things that matter in college football. I'm worried about, hey, Bill, we need you to meet with the recruits after the game, win or lose, because it's a home game. And we had a bunch of visits.
That ain't me.
Like, I understand he's not going to go in home that much. Dion doesn't do that. Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
But eventually you are the face of the program. So those things are going to have to happen. So look, I will say this. What I do understand is he is going to have to, what I understand is he's going to be open to being a little bit more, like he is not going to do the gruff press conference stuff. Like that's not going to happen. But
I think he's going to have to be, man.
He's going to have to be open to a level of hobnobbing, shoulder rubbing that he's not really used to. And I also do not subscribe to this notion of thinking or nature of thinking that like, oh, well, he's just giving a middle finger to the NFL. Like he's just doing this to prove that he's still got it in the tank. Like all this, guys, the NFL moves on. The NFL moved on. Death, taxes, and the NFL are the only truisms in this life. And they moved on from the greatest coach of all time, just like they moved on from Tom Landry, just like they moved on from on and on and on. From Bill Parcells. Like, this is, and I don't mean to be like overly poetic or overly dramatic about this, but like, if this is the guy like looking into his mortality at age 72 and thinking like that thing's kind of passed me by, I want to kind of run it back. Like, okay. What I also don't really subscribe to is that, oh, he's doing it for the betterment of the sport of football. No. Like AIDS. If he was doing that, why he ain't coaching at Harvard? Like, I could do
Sure.
a lot of things for the betterment of a lot of things for $10 million a year. I'd love
That's what I
to.
was getting. $10 million a year. What do we mean? Like, what else is there? It's $10 million a year. Although I will say this, man, I'd just be on TV the whole time.
But you're not built like him. You're not built like him.
Bro, TV, give me TV, give me $2 million a year. I'm doing TV. Like, what am I going to be upset about that? But I will say this, and this is something I don't think enough people have discussed, and I've brought it up a couple times, like when I've done some shows, and then we can get out of here. Not having, in this, I want to make sure I word this correctly, but not having a long-term, like, spousal relationship, I also think that is something that is in some way appealing, because whether it's Gus Malzahn and his wife, Miss Terry at Alabama, Mac Brown and his wife. I'll even go Charlie Strong with the whole, we've had to deal with that too. Like the Charlie Strong being in an interracial relationship. UNC is sitting here where they're like, she's 24. She's not making any decision.
There is also a notion of, I gave you your time, your 20 odd, 30 years, raise the kids, whatever. And now it's my time. Now it's our time. That's a real thing. Like, I'm not trying to.
What I'm saying is, I think that UNC, having dealt with whether it was Dean Smith or Sylvia Hatchell or Anson Dorrance or Roy Williams, like the idea of like Mac Brown twice. The wife is also in that interview. The partner is in the interview. The partner is in that like decision-making process. And I think not having to have that be a factor I think that's a real thing.
Well, Mac's wife wanted to be there. Like,
I know.
Yeah,
She
but this is what
wanted
I'm
to
saying.
be there.
Like, Mac's wife very much wanted to be there. You know what
She's
I mean?
like,
Like,
retire, and if you take a job, the only job that you're going to take is UNC.
Right. Like, Roy Williams' grandkids all over the place in Chapel Hill. You know, like, it's a family thing.
But it's
and
also
Carolina,
a thing you have to, like, that's a part of your thing.
Right. So, really quick, before we get out of here, I'm going to ask you, how does it work? But what does work look like, if it works? This is a program that has not won an ACC championship since 1980, played for a couple, and has, I believe, one 10-win season. If that's the,
I think if in terms of work, this is 8, 9, 10. 10 is the top side. I think 8 is what you want. If we're going to go by the contract, $50 million, 5 years, I think we've got to, like, there's got to be a 10-win season in there somewhere. So,
I mean, it might be that schedule is cake. Again, they weren't all. It's like Carolina was not awful this year. They weren't bad this year. They were.
They
fine.
also don't have
mid.
big players though.
Right, yeah.
So
You
we'll see.
get they get a relatively soft schedule. I will give you that. They have Charlotte on the road. They play TCU week 1, and it's mostly like old ACC coastal teams and Clemson. So they do get a soft go of it in the schedule.
So we'll see what happens.
We will. Mike Felder, your long national nightmare is over. Your new national nightmare is only beginning.
It's just beginning. All right.
I appreciate it as always, bro.
Let me hop off. I got to go do some radio now. Good grief.
All right, bro.
See you, bud.